Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to be looking at a Reddit post that got a ton of attention.
Yeah, over 1,500 comments.
Wow.
And it's one of those posts that just, I think, hits on a lot of those deep-seated anxieties we all have about, trust and betrayal in relationships.
Yeah, it's kind of worst nightmare scenario for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
So the post is about this woman who discovers her husband, well, actually her boyfriend at the time, asked a coworker for nudes and then went out for drinks with her.
Yeah.
This was all while he was planning to propose to her.
Oh, wow.
And then 2 years later, now married with a baby, she stumbles upon this information and their whole world is thrown into question.
That's so much to process. I mean, like, how do you deal with betrayal that emerges from the past? Like, after you've already, built this life together.
Right. It's not just the act itself, but the fact that it was hidden for so long, that's like a whole other level of violation of trust.
Yeah.
So before we jump into all the crazy Reddit reactions, let's just lay out what happened. So the wife found out about her husband's actions through a friend of a friend who worked at the same company.
Oh, my gosh. That's so awkward.
Can you imagine how awful and how hurtful that would be?
It's like a double betrayal, almost. Like, not just by the husband, but also the way she found out.
Exactly.
Mm.
And to make matters even worse, apparently this was common knowledge around the office.
What?
Some people on Reddit were saying if it was that well known, maybe something more serious happened than what the husband is letting on.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes you wonder, how much did he actually do? And, how did the whole office gossip thing amplify the betrayal?
Totally. So the wife obviously confronts her husband about what she heard, and he admits to asking for the nudes. She even reached out to the coworker who confirmed the story, but insisted that nothing physical ever happened.
Okay, so then the husband says he was just having pre-proposal jitters. But, is that really a legitimate reason? Or is it just a convenient excuse for bad behavior?
Yeah, the Reddit community was super divided on that. Some people were like, jitters really?
Yay.
Try talking to your partner about your anxieties, not soliciting nudes from other people.
It does seem like a pretty weak justification. I mean, pre-wedding anxiety is definitely a real thing, but it shouldn't lead to actions that, violate trust and commitment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also makes you think about what healthy coping mechanisms look like when you're facing those big decisions,
Yeah.
Clearly this wasn't it.
Right. It speaks to the importance of communication. If he was having doubts, why not just talk to his fiance about it? Open and honest communication is so important.
Yeah, especially when you're about to make a huge life decision together. Okay, so are you ready for things to get even more complicated?
Oh, no. What now?
So the wife later edits the post to say that the coworker did actually send the photos.
Oh, wow. Okay, that definitely changes things.
Right. Now, it's not just about his intentions, but his actions. He actively sought out and received explicit content from another woman while he was engaged.
And I'm sure the Reddit users had a lot to say about that.
Oh, yeah. They did not hold back.
Oh.
A lot of people were saying that soliciting and receiving those photos is a form of cheating, regardless of whether anything physical happened or not. It crosses a boundary that you just don't cross in a monogamous relationship.
I mean, that brings up the whole idea of emotional infidelity, which can be just as damaging as physical cheating. It's about where you choose to invest your emotional energy and attention.
And it wasn't just the photos. He actually met up with this coworker for drinks multiple times, and he didn't tell his fiancée about it. That's what really set off alarm bells for a lot of people on Reddit.
Yeah, I saw some comments that were like, adults don't just meet up for beers behind their partner's back.
Right, exactly. It makes you question what was really going on between them. Even if nothing physical happened, why the need for all the secrecy?
It's like his actions speak louder than words.
So to recap, we have a request for nudes, secret meetups for drinks, the question of whether anything physical happened, and all of this took place 2 years ago, right before he proposed. And now they're married with a baby.
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure. I mean, the fact that he kept this a secret for 2 years, that just adds another whole layer to the betrayal.
It's can you ever really feel secure in a relationship when, your partner was capable of hiding something like that?
Right. And a lot of people on Reddit were wrestling with that question. Is it even possible to move on without addressing what happened and rebuilding that trust?
Some people were saying that the relationship is basically doomed. Once a cheater, always a cheater. But then others were saying that people can change and relationships can heal with time and effort.
Forgiveness is tough. There's no easy answer. What works for one couple might not work for another. It really depends on their values, the severity of the betrayal, and whether both partners are willing to put in the work.
And we can't forget about the baby now. There's a child involved, which just makes the decision of whether to stay or go even harder.
Absolutely. I mean, the impact on the child is a huge factor. Some people on Reddit said that for the child's sake, they should try to work things out, but others said that staying together in a relationship where there's no love or trust might be even more damaging in the long run.
It's a heavy burden to carry, knowing that your choices will affect your child's life. So the big question is this relationship even salvageable?
I mean, the Reddit community was totally split on that. Some people were like, run for the hills, and others were like, it happened before they were married. Just let it go.
There was a lot of debate about whether the timing of the incident mattered. Some people thought that a betrayal is a betrayal no matter when it happened, but others thought that since they weren't officially married yet, it shouldn't be a deal breaker.
It's interesting how people have different boundaries when it comes to infidelity. What one person might be able to forgive another person might see as the end of the relationship.
Yeah, and reading through the comments, it was really striking how many people shared their own personal experiences with infidelity and betrayal. It just shows how much these situations can affect people.
Yeah, those personal stories are so powerful. They remind us that there are real people behind those anonymous usernames who are dealing with real pain and heartbreak.
With all this talk about the husband's actions and everyone's opinions on Reddit, there's one voice that's missing from this whole story.
You mean the wife's perspective?
Exactly.
Well,
We've heard from the husband, the coworker, and all these people on Reddit, but we don't know what the wife is thinking or feeling.
yeah, that's a big piece of the puzzle. We only get a glimpse of her initial reaction in the post. We know she's questioning everything, but we don't know how she's processing this or what she wants to do.
It would be so interesting to hear her side of the story, to understand her perspective on what her husband did, how his secret affected their relationship, and what she hopes for the future.
Maybe she's found support in the Reddit community, or maybe she's talking to friends and family.
Maybe she's even thinking about couples counseling. You just don't know.
And that's what makes this whole situation so thought-provoking. There are so many unanswered questions and so many possible outcomes.
It's a reminder that even with social media and everyone sharing everything online, some stories are still deeply personal and private.
Yeah, and it's important to respect that. Even though she shared her story on Reddit, we shouldn't expect her to share every detail or tell her what to do.
It's a good reminder to have empathy and compassion when we're reading stories like this.
Yeah.
We can share our opinions, but ultimately, the decision of what to do is up to the people involved.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we all handle betrayal and make decisions in our own way. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. There's just what feels right for the person going through it.
And it's so easy to get caught up in the drama and start judging people.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that these are real people with real feelings.
Absolutely. So even though we don't know what the wife decided to do, I think this deep dive has given us a lot to think about. What are some key takeaways you think our listeners can learn from this whole Reddit saga?
Well, first of all, I think it shows how crucial it is to be open and honest in a relationship. Like if the husband had just been upfront with his fiancée about what he was going through, maybe things would have turned out differently.
Totally. It's like trying to protect someone by keeping secrets can actually end up hurting them more in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being transparent and vulnerable, even though it can be scary, is really important for a strong and healthy relationship.
And it's also important to set clear boundaries and expectations in a relationship. Like what's considered cheating can be different for different couples, so you have to talk about those boundaries.
Yeah, and it's not just a one-time conversation. You have to keep talking about it as the relationship changes and you face new challenges.
This case also brings up the question of how to deal with betrayal that happened in the past. I mean, it happened 2 years ago before they were even married, but it's still affecting their relationship now.
It just shows that if you don't deal with issues from the past, they can come back and cause problems later on.
Exactly. So it's important to confront those issues, whether it's through talking to your partner or getting professional help.
And lastly, I think this story reminds us that forgiveness is a very personal journey. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away.
Yeah, sometimes you have to put yourself first and protect your own emotional well-being. You can't force someone to change or be honest. And sometimes moving on is the healthiest choice.
So here's a final thought for our listeners. If you were in the wife's shoes, what would you do? What would you consider before making a decision? Would you try to make it work, or would you see this as something you can't come back from?
It's a tough question, but it's worth thinking about. It makes you think about your own values, your boundaries, and what you're willing to put up with in a relationship.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dives into this wild Reddit relationship story. Thanks for joining us on this emotional roller coaster.
We hope this is giving you some things to think about, and maybe even inspired some conversations in your own lives.
Until next time, remember, relationships are complicated. Communication is key. And sometimes the toughest decisions are the ones that make you stronger.